Hey little Billy, do you want Final Fantasy VII HD remade with a new engine and sweet 3D graphics in one disc?
Yeah?
Well, too fucking bad.
With the recent news of Final Fantasy VII getting a remake, a lot of people have been getting very hyped that they can replay their childhood in glorious HD. There has been some disagreeing though, because they spit in your face and they say they'll be splitting up the games into episodic parts, and you yell, "Greedy!" and "That's not consumer friendly." Or is it? What I think I should clear up first is the fact that there is a vast difference when it comes to HD remakes and HD remasters. What I'm talking about is an HD remaster would be the updated versions of either the Uncharted series for the PlayStation 4 or the updated version of The Last of Us for the PlayStation 4. They didn't add a single new element besides shinier graphics. A remake would be something like Counter-Strike, the original, going to Counter-Strike Global Offense, or the new Resident Evil 1 remake, in which they both add something to the game that the original didn't have in the first place. With that in mind, we can now talk about why splitting this 15-plus-year-old game into parts isn't a bad idea. And here's why. The main and biggest reason is to please the original fans who played the original game by making new experiences. We all know the infamous Ares death scene, and we all know how Cloud is a clone, so there probably won't be any difference in endings. But in between all those major events, smaller, minor events occurred that people loved in the original game. They're going to add a lot of unseen and new content that brings back older players and brings maybe in newer ones who didn't want to play a game that looks so dated. I mean, have you seen the original Final Fantasy? It ain't pretty anymore. It was back in the day, but now, not so much. With this new content, the developers are aiming to make the game feel fresh and not a cash grab that tugs at the nostalgic. Another huge reason is that we're talking about going from a fixed camera perspective with pre-rendered backgrounds to a fully realized 3D world, something that, spoiler alert, takes a large amount of time. Why do you think indie developers so rarely make 3D games? It's because it's a hell of a lot more time consuming than doing a 2D side-scroller or a game made in RPG Maker. But Danny, look at how much content Fallout 4 or The Witcher 3 has, and they're on one disc. Fair point. But also realize how long it took for those to come out. Skyrim came out in 2011, and in 4 years later, we got Fallout 4. And people still complain when you could run across the entire map of Fallout 4 in just 11 minutes. Or when they simplified the responses when talking to someone. Or the fact that The Witcher 3 had a major graphics downgrade simply because the consoles couldn't handle all the graffiti goodness. Square wants to do it right, and that means doing it slowly and carefully. Now, they also walk a very thin line in greedy, however. With the aggressive Season Pass marketing that's been plaguing the gaming community ever since Activision found out that they could milk their fan base, me included, Season Passes are sadly a commonplace now. I feel like just like the Master Chief Collection, they should not include a Season Pass, because they should purely focus in making the best damn remake anyone has ever seen. Besides, everything I've seen up to this point has been very smart for a company that's been known to pump out garbage. Let's be honest. Final Fantasy XIII, not great. And on launch, Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO, garbage. Granted, they made changes to Final Fantasy XIV, and now it's a pretty okay MMO, but the damage was already done. The last reason why this is a good move on Square's part is the fact that this is a very good way to gauge consumer interest in the game. Usually remakes and remasters are only for the old fan base, and that might attract a few new players, but 90% of the time it's people who've enjoyed playing the game when they were playing it in their youth. I mean, I know tons of people who bought the remake of Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time on the 3DS, or the Star Fox. Hell, I fucking bought the Master Chief Collection just because I loved Halo 2. I didn't really care for Halo 1, and Halo 3 I loved as well, but I don't know, it just feels different on the Master Chief Collection. But I bought that game for Halo 2, and I got fucking screwed. My asshole is still numb from all that. So that's why I think Square is doing this in parts, because if the Master Chief Collection would have done that game in parts, or taken stuff out, it would have worked. I don't know why they included Halo 3 and 4. Because honestly, it was Halo 2's anniversary. It wasn't Halo 3's or it wasn't Halo 4's. It wasn't even Halo 1's. I don't know why they included the first Halo. It was a disaster, and it could have been avoided by just taking out content that wasn't needed. And I think that's what Square's trying to counteract by releasing this in parts, so they don't have a lot of stuff that can go wrong. You know, with games nowadays, they are more and more complex, which means a lot more can go wrong. But anyway, I get off track. In conclusion, don't hate Square for their greediness. Love Square that they actually seem to care about their fan base, because if they wanted to make a quick buck, they would have just released Final Fantasy HD and not added anything and just made it look prettier. Especially gaming companies tend not to want to stir things up with controversy unless they're a big company, and that most likely wouldn't see much of a drop in sales anyway. Like, I don't like these. Wow, that was convenient. Fuck! Fuck me! Jesus Christ!